There's so much to celebrate about Indian women's cricket after their stellar performance at the World Cup, first time world champions. But in all of this euphoria and excitement, there is one thing that's definitely left a bad taste in the mouth, and that is Pratika Rawal. Young girl from Delhi, opener, played a stellar role. Out of all the girls, 15 girls got their World Cup medal. Pratika Rawal, even though the team was kind enough, magnanimous enough to include her in the celebration, she did not get that World Cup winning medal. In fact, when you talk about the list of World Cup winners, her name will not be there, and that is rather awkward and very strange. Why do I say that? It's not just she played a game or two. She played 6 innings, in fact 7 matches, 6 innings in that World Cup. In the group stages, was a starter, an opener, had a stellar performance too. 308 runs she got, average of 51. In fact, it was her knock that ensured in that clutch game you reached the semi-final. Had it been not for a knock, who knows, you lost to New Zealand, may not even made the semi-final. So she's played an important role in this World Cup. And then doesn't it feel awkward for someone who's participated, played majority of this tournament, at the end of it is not a World Cup winner because she did not play 2 games, and those 2 games she was replaced because of an injury which she sustained during the tournament, during a game. It does feel strange to me. Now, what does the rules say? Now, the rules are clear. It's not that it's happened for the very first time. It's been there for a very long time. The ICC rule says that only 15 players who are part of the squad will receive the medal. Any player that is replaced during the tournament is not considered part of the squad. So, rule is same, and then only 15 players get that medal. But the question here is, can the rule not be re-looked at? And that's what we're trying to look at. Now, what happened in the past? There are past examples. There was Jason Gillespie in the 2003 World Cup. He played 4 matches, picked up 8 wickets for Australia. Australia went on to win that World Cup, beat India in the final, if you remember. But he was not considered as part of that World Cup winning squad, did not get his winner's medal. There was another example that comes to my mind, 2011 Indian example. There was Ashish Nehra. He also got injured, was ruled out of the final, but there was a difference. The Indian team did not seek a replacement. They kept him. Sreesanth played instead of him in the final. But the reason they did not seek a replacement, they knew that Ashish Nehra, who's been part of the team throughout the tournament, then would not be eligible if they went on to win. So they did not seek a replacement. From within the team, they got a replacement. So he got the winner's medal. Let's say Jason Gillespie did not. But that was a different scenario. India had a backup. They could afford to do that. In Pratika Rawal's case, she's an opener. India at that moment desperately needed an opener, and that is why Shefali Verma then came in. What happens in other sports? Let's take a look at that. FIFA World Cup, similar rules. Any player that is replaced, he does not get a medal. Even if he's replaced in the semis, is not part of the squad in the final, he does not get a medal. But there's a difference. A lot of times teams do not replace their players, but they can afford to do that. In the FIFA World Cup, there is a 26-member squad. 11 played, 26-member squad. So there are enough backups. So if there is a player who's played an important role, it happened with Karim Benzema as well with the French national team. If there's a player who's played an important role for the team, he gets injured as well, just a few games to go, they probably don't seek a replacement so as to ensure that he gets that winner's medal. But in cricket, you only have 15. There are just about 4 surplus, and sometimes there is not an exact like-for-like player. So FIFA, in that sense, have a leeway which can allow a player who's participated can still get a medal, even though if you are not part of the squad, you don't get a medal. Let's take a look at the English Premier League. You have to make minimum 5 appearances out of the 38 games that a team plays throughout the season. If you've played 5, and even if you played 5 minutes of the 90 minutes in those 5 games, even then you are considered, you get the winner's medal if your team goes on to win the title. It happens in all European league. It's a similar rule that they have. Maybe this is something that you need to look at. Maybe have a cutoff. Someone who's even played a game or had any sort of a contribution, he or she then should be considered part of the squad and maybe given a medal. How much difference does it make that instead of 15, you can give the 16th medal as well? That is something that cricket doesn't have. Now, what could be the rationale? Why is it that what we are saying now, the ICC has still not changed the rule after so many years? Now, 2 things that you can clearly figure out. Why is it that the ICC has the rule that sometimes, you can avoid faking of injuries, and that also avoids exploitation of the replacement rule. Now, why is it that I'm saying that? Considering, let's say you have a player and you're only allowed 15 in a tournament based on an opposition. Let's say, you don't have an off spinner in your squad, and you go through the entire tournament. Just before the final, you see the need of an off spinner because the opposition, let's say, has 5 left-hand batters. What do? You tell one of your spinners, maybe a left-arm spinner who you're not going to use in the final, you say he's injured and we need a replacement. You replace him, bring an off spinner for the final. So you can exploit that replacement rule. Now, what this particular rule does is that you will not try and replace a player just for the final, because if that left arm spinner over the course of the tournament has contributed, you will be reluctant to take him out if he does not have an injury, just for the sake of bringing in an off spinner. So that can be the reason the ICC has kept this rule, that only if it is a genuine injury, only if the team can't do anything, will they seek that injury replacement. So let's have only 15 medals. That is a deterrent then for team to be making replacements based on opposition or based on condition. This could be a logic that is there in the minds of the ICC, and maybe that's why they've had this rule. But then I would try and give you an example of what we have in the legal system. They often say that you're innocent unless you're proven guilty. Why is that rule existing? Why is that philosophy adopted in our legal system? Because they say that it is much more harmful to punish someone who's not guilty. Rather, you have someone who's guilty, and if you don't have evidence, let him then be scot-free. That is less of an evil than punishing someone who's not guilty. That's why you say you're innocent unless proven guilty. So I'm saying in this scenario, let's say this will leave the door open for the exploitation of the rule. But I think in the larger scheme of things, justice is done if you genuinely have an injury and a player who's participated, he or she then gets that medal. That, I think, can be the philosophy, and that, I think, can lead to some introspection, that I think can lead to the ICC to relook at that particular rule. Maybe have certain clauses in place that you have to have played a game in that tournament, not just be on the bench, and that should be enough for you to get a winner's medal. You let us know what you think of this entire rule, and whether there is scope then for changing it, or do you think you like it in the current avatar. Give us a like on the video if you're enjoying your content. Share it with your friends as well, who may have an opinion on this matter, or who are already discussing this probably in your WhatsApp group. So share it with them as well. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to Sports Today.